In the next 60 minutes here on Newsnight, former Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwul tears into the Mahama government, fighting off claims that the Akufo-Addo administration ran down the presidential jet, forcing Vice President Opoku-Agyemang to charter a private jet.
Especially at the age in which it is. They should just take it back to the salt in France and get it fixed and stop the propaganda. Propaganda cannot run the Ministry of Defense or the government. It doesn't work that way.
Also tonight, fair fury as drivers and passengers lock horns over 15% transport fare cut directive following the strengthening of the cedi against major trading currencies.
It's not yet 15%. Some are still meant almost like they've not even reduced it. Previously, it was 8 cities. I paid from Teshi to Circle 7 cities.
I was supposed to pay 10 cities, but it's 8 city 50 pesos that they took from me this morning. So I think it's working.
We'll hear the justification from the drivers.
Every group has leadership and we go according to what they say. They asked us to charge 9 cedis from 8 cedis, and that is what we are working with.
Also tonight, minority in parliament slams government's shock move to shut down its Washington embassy over fraud claims.
For you to come out and say that because of a certain fraud allegation, you are closing the entire embassy, that is an embodiment of a country in another man's land, that we disagree.
In sports,
Black Stars head coach Otuado looking forward to stern test from Nigeria in Wednesday's Unity Cup clash.
And in business, President John Mahama announces plans to reopen domestic bond market and return to the international capital market as well.
You want to stay with us for all that, plus your views and comments. 055-11-11997. Details after this. It's a live on Newsnight is on Joy 99.7 FM. Tonight, former Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwul is tearing into the John Dramani Mahama government, fighting off claims the MPP government ran down the presidential jet, forcing the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang, to charter a private jet to fly her to Ghana from the UK, where she's been receiving medical care. According to him, the government must come out clear on the real reasons for which they rented the jet and stop hiding behind what he calls propaganda against the former government. We'll hear from him pretty shortly, but what really triggered this was a statement that was put out, a post that was made by the current defense minister, Dr. Mani Boama, that has now incurred the wrath of the former defense minister. My colleague Papani Ashali is with me in the studio with details of this. So first of all, give us context. What started this and what did Mani Boama say?
So the minister wrote, and the minister referring to Dr. Mani Boama, quote, "Let the MPP that suffered the most humiliating defeat in recent memory in both the presidential and parliamentary elections know this." And he goes on to give us 3 points. 1. Akufo-Addo's administration ran down the presidential jet. Among others, its fuel tank is even corroded. And then to the second point, he says the presidential jet has been in the hospital, quote unquote, abroad for maintenance, repair and overhaul, and may be put in fairly usable state after 3 months of therapy. Then he concludes and says that the presidential jet is unfit for use presently, unquote, Evans.
Thankfully, we can speak to the former defense minister, Dominic Nitiwul, who joins us live right now. Mr. Nitiwul, thanks for your time here on Newsnight. So why did you run down the presidential jet if you are to believe the current defense minister?
First of all, good evening, and good evening to your listeners. First, I'm not too sure that I want to believe that the minister actually wrote this. But if indeed he did write this, then he has to revise his notes by simply talking to his officers at Air Force. They have all the records. So in 2023, I actually was in Parliament to inform the people of Ghana that our presidential jet had problems. It's for that reason that the former president was using rented jets. The same reason they are giving today, that is having problems. That's why they are renting. They rented a jet for their vice president. They did politics with the presidential jet, and we told them that when you come to government, your own propaganda will expose you. And that's exactly what has happened. Because you will realize that when you are running a state and you are the executive, at some point, you may have to rent a jet. They said, no, we could use commercial. So I'm even surprised that the vice president didn't use commercial. But let's put that aside. We are not against anybody renting a jet. I will never be against today. I'll never be against tomorrow. I've never been against it. But the truth is that we detected that this presidential jet had problems, and it was due for servicing. We took the jet in July of 2023, hoping that the normal servicing within 1 month, the jet will be in. When it went to France, as I told the country before, the jet, they detected that the fuel tank had problems. There were some corrosions and some other things there.
Well, Dr. Manibam also mentioned the corrosion, by the way, in his post.
That's why I said he could talk to if he had just spoken to the Air Force, we would have known that the jet stayed in France for 8 months simply because of that problem, so that they could put it they could make it fit for purpose, and they could ensure that the jet could fly. Because for the 8 years, we have always serviced this jet at the time it was expected to be serviced. In fact, he should know that the jet flies on a certificate. Every aircraft flies on a certificate given by the manufacturers. So if you don't have the certificate to fly, if the jet or the aircraft is not airworthy, the manufacturers will not allow you to fly it. If you do, you are only doing it at your own risk. And we have never done that, not once. So this jet was in France instead of the normal 4 weeks. It stayed for 8 months, or close to 9 months. It came back in March 2024. And if you realize, from March 2024, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo started using the jet. So March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, the former president used this jet any time and every time he wanted to travel.
So he used it for 9 months?
He did. So he used it to travel outside the country, within West Africa, within Africa, and outside Africa. He did that for the 9 months.
After the 9th month, did it require further maintenance after the 9 months?
No, it didn't. It didn't at all. In fact, it didn't go out for another maintenance. We handed over the jet to them. They were not using it. It is the reason I spoke in Parliament and said that the jet was serviceable. It simply means that the jet could fly. It was airworthy because we had done all the servicing and brought it. If 4 months later you have detected a problem, you have to take it back to report to the manufacturers and take it back to them so that they can work on it. Well, you don't do propaganda.
Well, he's very clear, though, that this is not a problem that they just discovered. This is a problem that you left for them to fix, and it's going to be there for 3 months.
I have always said that the source, that is Airbus, will not give you airworthiness unless the jet is airworthy. There's no way Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo would have flown that jet for 9 months if the jet could not fly. It's not possible. You cannot do it. He knows. He should know by this time that an aircraft is not like a car that you think you can run down. It's not possible. You cannot fly it if it's not airworthy. Nobody will even give you a landing permit. You cannot fly it outside Ghana. You cannot fly it anywhere. Because they will not give you landing permits, because the manufacturers will let everybody know that this aircraft is not airworthy. So please, I think that he should find a better explanation for why they rented the jet for the vice president.
But as defense minister, you know, on this particular matter, he would have received briefing before he put out that statement on his page.
Trust me, I can bet my life that no Air Force officer will make the sort of statement that was made that it was run down. Never. Because they are the very people who handle the servicing. It's not the ministers. And we never at any point said that we didn't have money to service the jets. Neither at no point did we say that we will not send the jets for servicing if it was due for servicing. So it is not possible for anybody, any officers who have said that it was run down. It's not possible. In fact, let me say something to you. It is even more dangerous to the to the integrity of Airbus itself, the manufacturers, for anybody to suggest that they allowed a jet that was not airworthy to fly. You're damaging the company. Trust me, if this is found to be true, that they allowed us to fly a jet that was not airworthy, their company stocks will crash because nobody's going to buy their aircraft. It's simply not possible. They will not do it. It's not a bicycle.
You also seem to suggest that the excuse of the presidential jet being run down, they just want to cover for the real reason why the vice president hired a private jet.
First of all, I am not in charge of, or I don't oversee the working of the presidential jet because I'm not more the minister. So I will not doubt the minister if he says the presidential jet has problems. I won't doubt that. Because it's a machine. It can develop, you can repair it today and tomorrow it can develop another problem. So I am not arguing with him on that side. But all I say is that for him to suggest, even for a minute or a second, that would deliberately run down the jet, and so because of that the jet is unserviceable and can only become scrap, it's simply not true. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if they rented a jet for the vice president, they should find a better reason. Instead of saying that we ran down this jet, that's why they were forced to rent a private jet. Did the vice president say he couldn't sit in a commercial aircraft? Did she say that she couldn't sit in British Airways or Emirates first class or British Airways first class or Qatar Airways? Did she say that? No, simply no. I don't believe she said that.
Your colleague, ranking on the Defense and Interior Committee in Parliament, Dominic Fojo, had asked Ablakwa, the Foreign Affairs Minister, to resign because he had in the past criticized your government at the time when you were the Defense Minister, where the President did not use a presidential jet but hired a private jet, and had said that if this happened again under their watch, this is a decision that he would take. You side with Tim Fojo's demands for him to resign?
Well, you're a man who has integrity and who stands by your word, and you make a promise to the people of Ghana, you have to fulfill that promise. So if indeed the table we've seen is not artificial intelligence generated, or is not fake, but it's real, that he actually went to the studios of Doom FM to promise the people of Ghana that if any of the top people, especially the president and the vice, were to rent an aircraft and not use either the presidential jet or the commercial one, he will resign. It is for him to honor that pledge. I mean, it is not even for us to ask him.
And this is what you're referring to.
So why should I stay there? Why resign? Because and do the same thing.
NDC banani pa odi animu no kofi fasa private jet bia. Now who are being you will resign.
I'll resign. Because what
resign?
What may resign? Why should I stay there? May resign because the mayor is on principle and yet personal. And yes, I may time President Akufo-Addo and as I mean President Kudebi. It's the principle. It's about protecting the public purse.
It's about education minister na oda ulam kwise mo abe resign.
Oh, may resign. I mean, my resigning free appointments committee of parliament.
And the appointment committee no say any allowance and more kwa na mojeje and I bibi wo baby a minimum.
Appointments committee which is a committee.
Well, that's in there talking on our sister station. That's Opoku-Agyemang Ablakwa, currently for Foreign Affairs Minister, making the point that he will resign if they are in power and any senior officials decide to use a presidential jet. But Dominic Nitiwul, the circumstances though are different. This is a vice president who we know was taking ill, spent some time in the UK, was returning to Ghana. The defense minister says the presidential jet was not in good condition, and she simply did not have a choice in the matter why they resorted to using the private jet. The circumstances are different.
I think that excuse is very short. It's laughable. And I don't think that anybody asked Honorable Ablakwa to make that promise to the people of Ghana. He did not say that he's saying it based on circumstances. He said he will resign. If I were him, I would have resigned. I would not even have waited for the president to come and tell me this. I will just honorably go because he says that he's a man of principle. So we are waiting. It is he who made the promise, so we are waiting for him. It is not me who made the promise. He never asked about circumstances. He never said, oh, if this happens, if that doesn't happen. He simply said, if they were to rent it, he will resign. Your lady was pointing out to him the dangers of the promise, but he didn't even pay attention. He stuck to it. He said he has principles. And so he's going to do that. So it is not for us. It's for him to respond. And if he doesn't, the people of Ghana will look at him from that angle. But to say that, oh, circumstances and that place, it won't wash at all. Listen, if we do not take politicians by their words and have to allow them to find excuses based on circumstances, this country will go nowhere.
On the subject of what really is wrong with the current presidential jet, Parliament resumes tomorrow. You've been on the floor many times on the subject of the presidential jet. Is this something that you want to get clarity on?
Well, I think that I will try and speak to my colleague because I expected him to do that. And I even expected Ablakwa to do that to me. So I give them that reference and speak to him on the side. And if there's a need to drag into Parliament, I will do it. But obviously, I'm not the ranking. The ranking is in team for the honorable, in team for the reverend. If there's a need for him to escalate it to the floor of Parliament and invite the minister, we will do it. But like I said, if the aircraft has an issue, I don't have a problem with that. But to suggest, even for a second, that somebody deliberately ran an aircraft because of that is not airworthy is not true.
Thank you very much, Dominic Nitiwul, is MP for Bimbilla and former Defence Minister. Now, some commercial drivers are brazenly defying the directive by their union leaders to cut transport fares by 15% while passengers feel the pinch, resulting in a tense standoff on the roads. Now, the situation is causing frustration of commuters who are being forced to pay higher fares. The directive is aimed at providing relief to passengers following recent strengthening of the cedi against the dollar and other major currencies. But the defiance by some drivers is undermining the impact of the cedi's gains as well as the effectiveness of the order. We'll soon speak to JoyNews' Collins from Pond, who stepped out to assess the situation. But before then, let's hear from President Mahama urging more businesses to reduce the price of their goods as he welcomes the move by groups like GPRTU to reduce transport fares. He spoke at the Ghana CEOs Summit.
And work to maintain a conducive environment for your businesses to thrive. Let me take the opportunity to commend those of you who have responded to the cedi's appreciation by reducing prices of your products and services and thereby passing some of the relief from the hardship to Ghanaians. And so, Oka and all of you, thank you very much. GPRTU, thank you very much. And so for those of you who have not responded yet, please pass on some of the cedi appreciation to Ghanaians. The time has come for us to lift the gloom, to restore confidence, and to build again. And as I said in my inauguration, Ghana is open for business again.
Collins joins me. And Collins, for clarity, for those who today would have encountered drivers who were charging fares they simply did not understand, what's the directive from GPRTU?
Well, Evans, according to the GPRTU's published fares, routes that previously cost 10 cedis should now cost 8 cedi 50 pesos, and a 9 cedi fare should be reduced to 7 cedi 50 pesos. And if you used to pay 17 cedis, that should now be 14 cedi 50 pesos.
Okay, so on your way home tonight, rush hour, bear that in mind. But you went out, you found that there's tension now in vehicles and in lorry stations and terminals all across Accra.
Actually, the directive, based on what happened today, actually it's quite opposite. So if you committed between Dansoman and Circle today, you paid 9 cedis and not 8 cedi 50 pesos. From Medina to Accra, the fare was 8 cedis, down just 1 cedi from the previous 9 cedi, instead of the 7 cedi 50 pesos set by the GPRTU. I spoke to several drivers at the Circle bus terminal who admitted they are charging these adjusted rates, which fall short of the union directives. Some of them tried to justify why.
We have been asked to reduce fares, but cost of living is still high. If it does not come down, I'll stop the driving and go back to illegal mining. Previously, we charged 9 cedis, but we are charging 8 cedis now, which is not helping us. Right now, we are charging 8 cedis. I'll urge the government to bring back the smaller denominations and make it compulsory for usage to reduce the prices of some commodities like water. Every group has leadership, and we go according to what they say. They asked us to charge 9 cedis from 8 cedis, and that is what we are working with. Some time passed, we were to charge 11 cedis, but due to considerations, we had to charge 10 cedis. Suppose we were to go by that, we would have to charge 10 cedis now.
I want to take you to Kumasi now, the Shanti regional capital. The story is the same.
I would be lying if I said we are not affected by the reduction in fares. I am a driver and I have to buy brake fluid. It used to cost 7 cedis, but now it's 40 cedis. Why is it that the person selling it hasn't reduced their price, but drivers are expected to lower theirs? Initially, the fare from Tek to Obuakwa was 11 Ghana cedis, but it's now 9 cedis 50 pesos.
So, some drivers there. What about you? We went on the streets, got a few views from many terminals. This is what you told us.
It's not yet 15%. Some are still almost like they've not even reduced it. Previously, it was 8 cedis. I paid from Teshi to Circle 7 cedis. But now, I just paid for my boy to school. I gave them 10 cedis. They gave me 5 cedis 50 pesos. So it's not yet 15%.
I say I'm from Chiblo to Circle, and I've experienced it. I'm supposed to pay 10 cedis, but it's 8 cedis 50 pesos that they took from me this morning. So I think it's working.
7 cedis. So now it's 6 cedis. Okay. So it seems it started on Saturday that they reduced the price, but some of them took it effectively today.
I want to bring in Abbas Moro. He speaks for the GPLTU, joins us on the line right now. Emmanuel Yeboah is the General Secretary of the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council, also joins us. Abbas, grateful that you could join us here on Newsnight. You issued a directive. What's your reaction to what we're hearing? Your drivers are charging something completely different.
Yeah, good evening to listeners. We've had a lot of complaints as well, all over the country as well. Some have complied, some haven't complied. But the education side is, each time we meet with the Transport Ministry, who also defend the general public and take a decision, then that becomes a law for all of us. Likewise, either upward adjustment or the decreased system that we just experienced. So it's just unfortunate that some people will come up and say, I am not going to comply. And surprisingly, I haven't heard the transport minister saying something as at now. I'm surprised.
I mean, what do you want him to say?
Oh, yes, of course. He is the head of the transport industry, and he is aware of the decision taken. We took this decision, and he, at least by now that everybody has heard, some of the people have complied, but not all. There are few recalcitrant ones. At least he, being the minister, should by now come up and say something. At least ask the police to make sure the law is being complied with, or anything else will make sure that people will comply with the current law. But he has also kept quiet. And I'm surprised that Saturday, Sunday, today Monday, he has also allowed some of the people to do things the way they wanted to. I don't think we should wait till somebody is being attacked, beaten and killed before the authorities will come up and say, oh no, we have laws in the land. The law says currently everybody should reduce by 15%. Why are you not reducing? We shouldn't wait till something happens. I'm pleading with those in authority to make sure we are not law enforcing agencies. Whenever any law is made, they have to make sure that law is being patronized by the citizens. So I'm surprised someone even said, yes, he has experienced a fuel reduction, but spare parts has not been reduced. Once a later part in 2022, we reduced lorry fare by 15.3% in 2022. Why? It was only fuel in the early months of 2022, which went up, and within that year, we were able to increase lorry fares. Not long from the increment, then the fuel started declining. It declines to some extent that we have to reduce lorry fares by 15.3%. What happens to that? Is it not the same thing that we are experiencing now?
Stay with me, Abbas. I want to bring in Emmanuel Yeboah. He's the General Secretary of the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council. Emmanuel, what is the council doing about the situation currently? You hear the GPLT calling for help from the authorities to rein this in.
Well, thank you very much. It's unfortunate we are having this report because one would expect that since last Saturday, things would have fallen in the right place. But unfortunately, with the story we are hearing, that is suggests that we have even up to about 50% compliance, which is quite serious. The issue we have now is largely about the operational system that we have in Ghana. Most of our drivers, especially the truck drivers, don't load from terminals, and that makes it difficult for implementation. So I'm calling on the city authorities to at least provide a terminal space so that most of the truck, if not all, we can load from a terminal. We want to load from a terminal. There's some leadership and some control.
Yeah, I mean, that solution is not something that you can implement overnight. In the meantime, the commuters want to enjoy the benefits.
Let me drive at something. You see, the issue is that we expect them to comply, and they are not doing so. I think the city authority also have a role to play because these terminals we have city guards. If you go to Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly for now, I have a letter, a notice that they issued to operators. Say if you don't comply, they will apply some level of force and all that. So I expect that this triggers throughout the country, so that everybody will take the measures AMA is taking to ensure compliance. So I think that is for now. That's about going forward. I think we should have a more regulated terminal so that this thing can be kept.
I mean, immediately though. I mean, what can the council do collaborating with the ministry to enforce this?
No, like I said earlier, we are collaborating. We are doing quite a number of discussions behind the scenes. We are calling them personally, trying to interact and maybe encourage them to do.
If the encouragement fails, if the encouragement fails, as we've seen is failing, what happens?
Well, of course, the law is there to take its course. Except that we the leadership, we don't have any power to prosecute or maybe arrest anybody. But once it's generally accepted that anybody who does that is flouting the law, and the relevant authorities can maybe see where they can do their implementation of the law and get it enforced. Fine, we don't have any problem.
I mean, Abbas, very quickly, for commuters who currently, many listening to you right now, having to deal with the challenge of uncertainty around the fares, what should they do if you board any of the public transport to a destination of yours and you're not charging the fare that you have approved? What should a passenger do?
I earlier on said, I'm still repeating that
we should all try to comply. Those, I'm told some few unions have complied. It's not exactly up to the 15%, but the passengers are not complaining compared to those who are not complying. They are not the same. So I keep saying, any recalcitrant driver who refuse to comply, the passengers whom he has cheated, should hand him over to the police. Because as of today, you can't say you don't know how to calculate the 15%, or you haven't heard about how much you should take out from your distance that you fly. Meaning, I heard some driver whom one of the station interview says, engine too much, engine too much. I mean, look at how he speaks, you see. So if one or two people are being brought to book, for everybody to know that the laws are there, if you haven't fall foul, don't think we don't have laws guiding us. I think that will change our attitude.
Thank you, Abbas Moro. It speaks for the GPL to you. Earlier, I had Emmanuel Yeboah, General Secretary of the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council. George Rafe is here. George, you haven't used public transport in a long time, but the suggestion by Abbas Moro tonight that if you feel cheated by the driver, you should hand him over.
Citizens arrest.
Exactly.
But the official from the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council made a very interesting submission that he's saying that from their checks on the ground, about 50% of the drivers are not complying. And I believe that when it comes to unionized drivers, a chunk of these drivers are part of GPRT. They operate from terminals. I mean, to have more than 50% not complying, the argument about they needing a terminal to enforce is actually washed down, because if it's more than 50%, these drivers often or most of them operate from terminals. So what lies the argument about having a terminal will make it easier to enforce these fares? It's interesting. I mean, what is happening right now?
Yeah,
and even
it is interesting.
among some traders as well.
Yeah, among traders. And tonight on PMS, so that's exactly what we're doing. We're bringing the traders, bringing the transport operators themselves, bringing businesses, bringing the AGI, etc. Because everybody else who must adjust anything for us to feel this in our pocket, we need to hear from them, right? I mean, government says, well, the policy is very clear. You're seeing the CDs as appreciation, and so make sure that we can feel it. If that doesn't happen, that it's pointless until we begin to feel this in our pocket. So we need to talk to the drivers, talk to the market women, and the market women will join us on PMFS. I mean, we want to understand the psychology behind it. Rarely do you see this sort of appreciation, and then you say reflect. No,
but even in economics,
exactly.
That's theory,
and that is what we really want to sort of unpack a bit tonight. Understand the dynamics there. Why we are not seeing prices fall as quickly as the CDs is appreciating.
Evans, I mean, somewhere in January you were looking at somewhere around over 15 Ghana cedis to $1. I mean, now you're doing somewhere around 10 Ghana cedis. And the interesting thing is that, Evans, this didn't happen overnight. I mean, we've seen the CD being fairly stable for a long time, and then the after April wave, if I can use that expression, where it jumped up significantly. So you even have some number of weeks and days to work with, and I agree it has to be gradual, but you also find that some of the major outlets are already doing that. I mean, there's a shop that is supposed to be an official distributor for Apple products. I mean, iPhone 16, we understand, was going for somewhere around 37,000. It's dropped to about 30,000 Ghana cedis, and the argument was that, I mean, this week they'll be dropping prices as well for all the other products. Well, Evans, in other business news, President John Mahama announces plans to reopen the domestic bond market and return to the international capital market, but assures that, I mean, the borrowing will be linked to self-financing projects. And Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama reminds businesses about Citi being the sole legal tender, insisting the regulator will not hesitate to crack the whip. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all your office essentials, Synthesis tanks and Pepsodent, Herbal and Charcoal. You welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, President John Mahama has announced plans to reopen the domestic bond market and return to international capital borrowings. The president disclosed this at the 9th CEO Summit in Accra. President Mahama, however, insisted that this will not be business as usual when it comes to borrowing these funds.
We're working to reopen Ghana's bond market in collaboration with the IMF and our development partners, the Ghana Stock Exchange and local banks. However, future borrowing will be linked to self-financing commercially viable projects, particularly by MDAs, MMDAs, and SOEs, ensuring value for money and sustainable repayment. The third is strengthening sovereign funds and local government financing. We'll amend the Public Financial Management Act and Constitution to make contributions to the sinking and stabilization funds mandatory. It will not be optional. So a certain percentage of funds must be committed to the sinking and stabilization funds. We also intend to empower MMDAs to issue infrastructure and municipal bonds secured against a portion of their district assemblies common fund to fund infrastructure projects such as roads, schools, water systems, and local industry in the districts.
Meanwhile, President John Mahama is proposing some innovative means to effectively aid the collection of road tolls in the country.
We said in the budget that we're going to reintroduce road tolls. And so they've been talking about, what the modality should be and all that. But the good thing today is every car is linked to the owner's Ghana card. And so we don't need to have the old toll gates and those cards that you stand and open and all that. We'll just go straight digitalized. If it's one city, if you cross the East Legon Bridge, Governor and Finance Minister will all be happy. We'll just take a picture of your car and then it will take the bill to your mobile money or your bank account and just pay one city, only one.
President John Mahama. The Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama has reminded businesses about the city being the sole legal tender for all financial transactions in the country. Dr. Isiama has therefore given the firm assurance that the Bank of Ghana would not hesitate to crack the whip in enforcing these regulations. The governor was speaking to businesses at the 9th CEO Summit in Accra.
The city, our city, remains the only legal tender in Ghana, and I put that in capital letters. The CD is the only legal tender in Ghana, and as businesses, we must ensure that transactions going forward are conducted in our local currency.
And that's the Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama. Now, Finance Minister Dr. Atuforsen has announced that he will personally lead a new government policy that will seek to restrict items that are imported into the country but can be manufactured locally. The Finance Minister noted the move is part of efforts to stimulate domestic manufacturing, job creation, and protection of local industries. Dr. Forsen disclosed this when members of the Plastic Manufacturers Association paid a courtesy call on him at his office. Now, the Ghana Chamber of Mines has maintained that it will continue selling a fraction of its gold output to the Bank of Ghana. Now, there have been reports that with the starting of the gold board operations in Ghana, the mining firms may now have to be forced to sell their gold to the gold board. But the chief executive of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Dr. Amatogman, says that they will be still sticking with the Bank of Ghana.
Well, for us, we have the agreement with the Bank of Ghana. So we'll continue on that tangent. Mm-hmm. If the Bank of Ghana re-engages us, or somebody else will engage and say that, look, now this is what it's supposed to happen, we'll look at the detail. It's about selling to, whether we are selling to you, or we are selling to Kwesi, or we are selling to Ama. It's about selling the same gold and under the same kind of similar conditions. Why not? I mean, no, it's not about the gold board and Bank of Ghana. It's about, look, using some of Ghana's gold to shore up our currency. And companies are willing to sell to the right person under the right conditions.
So, gentlemen, I ask this question because some of your members are multinationals.
Yes.
And when it comes to some of these things, they are very particular about how things are done, the transparency and
agreement with the Bank of Ghana. And that is what we are following. Mm-hmm. We haven't heard anything. We haven't been approached by anybody. We've heard about the gold board. We know what we thought was that we're buying from small-scale mining companies to buy from them and that. If anything has changed, that is the dialogue. Like I say, the questions that we're asking here, that's the questions that will be asked.
Ahmed Naktongma is the acting chief executive of the Ghana Chamber of Mines. Let's turn our attention to the stock market. And if you were a shareholder of MTN Ghana, today you lost 2 pesos for each share that you're holding. And the value is now worth 3 Ghana cedis, 18 pesos. Bank also is now worth 59 pesos after going down by a peso. Access Bank, on the other hand, was up by 92 pesos to close at 10 Ghana cedis, 12 pesos. And that's all for business on News Night. Back to you, Evans.
Thank you very much, George. And you want to join us on PM Express later tonight? We are having the pocket analysis on the back of what appears to be a rebounding economy.
Price stickiness.
Anchored on the CDs. Exactly. Anchored on the CDs appreciation. You join a group of individuals and businesses responsible for ensuring that you feel it in your pocket. Let's see what you're thinking. The conversation is on PM Express tonight at 9 p.m. Let's do sports now.
The Black Stars are in the news, and their head coach Opoku-Agyemang, he says the 2025 Unity Cup is an opportunity for him to keep a close eye on his players. Ghana's senior national team are currently in London for the return of the tournament, with Opoku-Agyemang naming a 23-man squad earlier today. He feels the competition will be a great platform for some players to leave a mark in the minds of the technical staff.
It's difficult to say. So Iñaki has been out, for example, for 3 weeks. There's nothing we can do. Kudos, he came to the hotel today and visited the players. So there are different things. All the culture meets. It's a big festival. It's very, very nice to be here, and surely we are using this opportunity to do further tests, to test our players, to see our players on a very, very high level. And we're happy that we are getting this opportunity. And for us, it's surely a good test for the upcoming World Cup qualifying games in September.
Now, the squad is without some high-profile players, with Mohamed Kudus, Thomas Partey and Antoine Semenyo all missing. However, there have been some return of some 5 debutants in the team. Opoku-Agyemang has explained why some of these big guns are absent from the squad.
It's difficult to say. So Iñaki has been out, for example, for 3 weeks. There's nothing we can do. Kudos, he came to the hotel today and visited the players. So there are different things. So we are still bonding, we are connecting, we're trying to do the best. But if somebody's injured, there's nothing we can do, and we have to look at the games. On the other side, it gives opportunity for a lot of other players, and this is how football is. At the moment, it's not only us, but also other teams have a lot of injuries. Some are very, very serious, and some are maybe just slightly.
That was Black Stars head coach Opoku-Agyemang. Bring that into sports. Back to you, Evans.
Thank you very much. A few of your messages on our WhatsApp console now. Buchi Philip from Keta says, seriously, transport fares remain constant in the Keta district. From Keta Market to Ketebusco Junction is 5 cedis. Even motorbike riders are charging very exorbitant prices in the Keta constituency too. Fee in Kede says the government has caused financial loss as we taxpayers with the arrest of Wuntumi and Adentakumi. They should send the case to court and let's see how it goes. George from Malangbawi says, I can't believe the MPP guys are now talking freely thanks to JDM and the NDC government. Ghana is now free. Shem Mixing Yeboah says, private jet matters again. We need national conviction and cohesion and a mere political party affiliations. Let's forget about the NDC and the MPP. Ghana deserves better, he says. Well, today, former board chairman of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, Professor Ameya Kumfi, has officially been charged with 4 counts, including willfully causing financial loss to the state in the ongoing Urban Sky Train trial for his involvement in the suspicious payment of some 2 million for the undelivered train system. My colleague Latif Idris was in court today and filed his report, including the report that he pleaded not guilty.
Professor Ameya Kumfi today appeared in court. In fact, he appeared in a wheelchair. He also had a walking stick, and he had some medical tapes strapped around his wrist, signaling or suggesting that just maybe he was coming out of the hospital. Because if you recall, he had been at the University of Ghana Medical Center for the past weeks undergoing medical treatment. His lawyer made a forceful submission before the trial judge that his client had undergone hip surgery, and he's also been declared to be hypertensive, and so he needed consistent attention, otherwise that will be injurious to his health. Having heard his arguments, the trial judge admitted Professor Christopher Ameyaw Ekumfi to a 10 million Ghana cedis bail with 2 sureties, both to be justified with landed property in the national capital of Accra. He is also expected to submit his traveling document to the court. His sureties are also expected to provide the digital address to the court. Professor Ameyaw Ekumfi, unlike his co-accused, that is Solomon Asamoah, who is supposed to report 3 times in a week to the police, Professor Ameyaw Ekumfi is asked to report once to the police as part of his bail condition. So for now, Mr. Ameyaw Ekumfi has been granted bail. We understand he's been remanded into the custody of the National Investigation Bureau until he's able to meet this particular bail condition that has been set for him. Some big wigs of the New Patriotic Party were in court in solidarity. We saw SK Boafo. We also saw Kennedy Ejapong. There was also Martin Ajay Kosa. They were all of them were in court to solidarize with the former education minister and former post and harbour minister under the Eswal Kufuor administration. The case has been adjourned, and when it's recalled, case management is expected to take place. JoyNews, the court complex.
And that there is Lateef Idris with that report from court. Now, the minority in Parliament has strongly criticized the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Sam Okudzeto-Ablakwa's decision to temporarily close Ghana's embassy in Washington, D.C. over alleged corruption and fraudulent activities involving some staff there. According to Okudzeto-Ablakwa, the closure was necessitated by the discovery of local staff charging unauthorized fees of up to $60 for services rendered to clients without the ministry's knowledge. However, Deputy Ranking Member on the Foreign Affairs Committee and MP for Bosom Ifreho, Nana Asafo-Adjei, has described the decision as, quote, not well thought through and warned it will have significant costs for the country.
That there should have been so much more consultation, so much more diplomacy and tactfulness to this whole matter. Now, the embassies are not only for visa or for passport works. The embassy goes beyond the visa and passport works. You see, the embassy largely serves as a critical platform for a lot of diplomacy work. We have trade attaches in the embassies. We do scholarship activities in the embassies. There's a whole lot of strategic dealings that goes on in the embassy. So for you to come out and say that because of a certain fraud allegation, you are closing the entire embassy, that is an embodiment of a country in another man's land, that we disagree. We could have done this without closing the embassies. That is one major issue the minority has against the decision that have been taken by the.
But then this closure is just temporal. So why not allow for the investigations and then after that it's opened?
Have you costed? Hold on. Have you costed the cost that would the closure for temporarily have cost to the country? Have you imagined or averted your mind to the diplomatic relations that this temporal, so-called temporal, will affect the country? No. That is our point. We believe that this that the minister has done would cause a lot of damage to the reputation of the country. I think stakeholders would be comfortable dealing with an embassy that no less a person, the minister, has declared that embassy as a fraudulent area and has closed it down. You think as a US as a state will be comfortable dealing with you coming from the minister?
Would you tell us what Parliament would do, your side would do, when Parliament resumes tomorrow?
Don't worry, we are still consulting.
Parliament resumes tomorrow. We'll see how the minority approaches this particular subject. Meanwhile, a former consul general at Ghana's consulate in New York, Daniel Kingsley Atabafo, says a decision to shut down the embassy will have real impact on Ghana's image abroad and should be reconsidered.
This thing needs to be investigated thoroughly before maybe a decision is taken. Because You cannot close down an embassy. You see, once the Americans, they know that they haven't had any problem with Ghana. Why should Ghana close its embassy? And what are the people going to think about Ghanaians if you close down the embassy?
And then government reaction to this is the temporary closure of the embassy. All staff members ask those who are there as employees of foreign affairs posted to the embassy, they are coming back home.
That one, for me, a former consul general and a diplomat, I think that one is too harsh, because what about a secretary who is working over there? What about home-based officers who are at any point not even closer to the job that this gentleman is doing? And then you combine all these people. No, I think what we should look at is we should ensure that we maintain the activities of the embassy.
I heard that the former Consul General at Ghana's consulate in New York, Daniel Kingsley Atabedu, speaking there to my colleague Elton Broby on the Pulse. And that's it for News Night tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening.